everybody. This is the Johnversations Podcast. And after a long break, we are back for episode number 59. Thank you guys for being patient while we've been off the air. We had a lot of change going on, a lot of things, lot of things happening. My wife, Kara, who's been on the show before, she's going back for her master's degree. Finally got to travel, got to fly to Michigan to see some family. It had been literally 23 months, almost 2 years since I got to go home and see everybody. And I got to take the wife and the kid, and she got to play with her cousins and run around with them and get to know them. And it was just an amazing time. Felt so good. And hopefully you guys are getting that same opportunity, getting to see family that we haven't seen, or, you know, I know a lot of people had, you know, nieces, nephews, myself included, that were born during COVID that we just hadn't had the chance to meet yet. So hopefully you guys are getting to experience some of the joy that I have over the last couple of weeks. We've been working on a new studio. So if you are watching on YouTube, you may notice this cool new brick wall we got behind us. Got some beautiful plants here, some succulent action. This is going to keep changing. We're in the beginning stages. I've got some other ideas, and hopefully we're going to be set up for some in-person guests here pretty soon as well. But you know, with the Delta variant, stuff like that, still being careful, still doing a lot of stuff virtually. So again, just really appreciate you guys checking it out. And for everybody who reached out while we were off and asking if there were new episodes coming, thank you guys for letting me know that you like what we're doing, that you missed it, because I missed being here with you guys, and I missed putting out episodes. Also, while I've been off, I've been scheduling out the episodes. I've got some people I'm very excited are going to be on the show. And this week, you know, I was thinking who would be a great guest, right? Who would be someone who would be awesome to kind of kick it off coming back. And this person fit the mold perfectly. She's been a friend of mine for a long time. She is a licensed clinical social worker. She got her bachelor's and master's degree from Middle Tennessee State University. She has a ton of experience, including community mental health, incarceration reentry programs, residential treatment for addiction, just a whole bunch of stuff. And we're also going to talk about something that she specializes in. But I'll be sitting down this week with the incredible, the extremely caring and compassionate Rayne Satterfield. And again, guys, thank you so much for being here. Just super, super happy. Before we jump into the interview, just a reminder, please follow us on the socials. We are on Instagram at Johnversations. We are on Facebook at Johnversations, Twitter at A Johnversation. And if you like what we're doing, if you're a fan, if you're happy that we're back, you can jump over to johnversationspodcast.com. We've got links to current episodes, all the older episodes. But if you're really enjoying it, you want to help out, you know, studios, stuff like that. They're not free. There's a cost with everything. But I love doing it. And I want to continue to give you guys the best content we can. So if you're enjoying the show, you want to help out, head over to johnversationspodcast.com. There is a donations link. You can click there. I believe it's anywhere between like 99 cents, like $5. You can do it as a one-time or recurring. If you're enjoying the show, you know, feel free to buy us a gas station cup of coffee, right? 99 cents. Every little bit helps. And again, more importantly, just thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing and telling your friends about it. And it's just, again, feels so good to be back. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode with the amazing Rayne Satterfield. Rayne, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing it. I know, you know, before we talked, there was or when we originally talked about you doing the podcast, you know, there might've been some hesitation. This is, I know, kind of out of your wheelhouse. So I really appreciate you coming in and hanging out virtually, and just super, super happy to have you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'm the one asking questions usually. So to be flipped and recorded, I'm like,
Yeah, I thought it would be really funny. I couldn't get one, but I was like, what if I could get a couch? I thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, I should have been laying on a couch for this.
Oh, for sure. I'd just sit with a notepad.
Mm-hmm.
But No, I really appreciate you doing it. And I have to say, your husband, Matt, has been on the podcast before. He is one of my favorite people. You are your whole family are some of my favorite people in the world and people that I really enjoy spending time with. So the fact that I've got to have both of you on now, and I don't know, these conversations are just a lot of fun for me. So I really appreciate you doing it.
Yeah. Everybody else has made their way on. So I figured it was time, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I gotta get everybody. I'm lucky enough that I feel fortunate to have some very interesting and very talented people in my life. And so to be able to kind of share what you do and the things that you care about with everyone who listens to the show is a big pleasure of mine. So again, really, I'll probably say it like 60 more times, but I really appreciate you being here.
Well, I'm glad you thought about me.
No, of course. And obviously you have the self-care spot, which I want to get to in a little bit. And I want to make sure that people are aware, especially if there's any listeners listening in the Tennessee state area, just so, they know what's going on. But, you are a licensed clinical social worker. You spend all of your life, well, not all, a big portion of your life and time out of your day devoted to helping other people. And I kind of wanted to ask you, just to kick off, like, where do you think that comes from? Like, as a kid, were you like, I'm going to be a social worker? You know what I mean? Talk to me a little bit about like what growing up was like for you, and where do you think that seed got planted?
Okay. Well, that can be the whole episode in itself, to get into childhood and all that stuff. No, I did not know that I wanted to be a social worker until I was in college. And I actually thought that I was going to I went through a few different majors. I was like, I'm going to do art. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be all these different things. And then I was finally like, no, I'm going to do social work. And, it has fit really well. Growing up, I cared a lot for people. In my family, there's, I've got 5 other siblings. There's 6 of us. So, life was stressful, for my parents, for sure at times. I am the second youngest. So I know I spent a lot of my childhood trying to like help my parents and, make things easier on them. And I don't know, I've just always kind of had that like thinking and caring about others and trying to help them out. So it just kind of naturally morphed into social work. I also, you might hear Asher crying in the background. I don't know if you can hear him.
We're going to get to the kids too. So that's not a problem at all.
It's, nap time and there they are. Anyways. No, so like church was a really big part of my life growing up. I was there every time the doors opened and super involved. There were some people that I looked up to at my church who were social workers. And so that was also something that kind of drew me to that. I did a lot of like mission projects and mission trips and things like that. So yeah, that kind of stuff it was just like a part of my life. So it just made sense.
It seems like, and it's funny because, I've known you for years. And again, I think that's why I like doing these kind of conversations because, I've known you, I've literally known you. Me and Kara have been married for 5 years now. And then you guys met through work and, I've known you all these years, but we've never had like this kind of conversation where it's like, how many, I knew you had siblings, but I didn't, and also it's striking to me because I'm the oldest of 4 and we were the same when I was younger. We were Free Will Baptists growing up. So we were in church all the time. And that's where I was like, I like to sing and stuff like that. So it's crazy to kind of learn that there's those commonalities, but it seems like from a child, maybe it was instilled in you when you say like, you wanted to help your parents and make things easier. It's like almost like this like sense to serve a little bit or to like help when you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my love language is acts of service. So, so some of that is just like hardwired in me. I'm sure we'll get to the whole highly sensitive person thing, right? And so that's a trait that I have that I've come to learn about, and it's very empowering for me. And so through that, just having this kind of sensitivity towards just being drawn to people and like their needs, I would say that I have had to turn this trait, this concern for others and trying to help my parents and stuff, right? That can be really unhealthy. And so I've worked on that and, have turned it into a more healthy thing. So, yeah.
Now, when you say it can be unhealthy, because to me, I think like, especially when your love language, my mom is the same way where it's, she's very much like, yeah, I'll watch the kids, I'll do your laundry, like these acts of service to kind of, and, we didn't grow up with much, so I think when you don't grow up with much, you still want to kind of show people that you love them and that they're valued and things like that. But when you say that, there has to be a healthy balance, in my mind, I could kind of see it being like, okay, I want to show people that I care and that they're valued so much that I end up putting the things I want to do for them in front of like the things I need to do for myself. Is that a fair assessment? Oh
yeah, absolutely. It becomes, those moments when somebody asks you and internally you're like, no, why are they asking me? I don't want to. And then out of your mouth, sure. Right. So it's like those moments that you want to say no, but you say yes, right? Because you're more worried about them or how they're going to feel or hurting their feelings or something. Or, I'm only focused on other people and their needs and not taking care of myself. And that's kind of part of where the self-care spot, developed. Like that's just been part of my journey, is figuring out me and how to take care of myself and meeting my needs before I meet other people's needs.
Well, I guess like a question I have is like, I've never been good at setting boundaries. I think like, I think I'm very, very good at respecting them, but I think I have a hard time setting boundaries for myself. And, obviously being with Kara has helped a lot because she's, very similar to you as far as what you guys do for work and the people that you interact with and things like that. But for you, like, what was your secret to figuring out how to set those boundaries? Or like, was there something for you that was like, okay, I can't do this anymore, I need to put these things in place?
I don't know that I have a clear answer to that. So in some ways, boundaries have come easy to me when it's settings like work. And I think that's because of, so my parents actually model healthy boundaries in a lot of ways. Like my dad is a probation officer. He works with people. And I've kind of, I don't know. I guess I've taken some of his traits with like the working with people and almost some counseling aspects to that. But he has really good boundaries, maybe on the side of inflexible boundaries sometimes. But yeah, so like I did get that example, and I think I'm lucky for it because a lot of social workers or just like a lot of people in this like helping profession, that's a struggle. So like professionally, it's always been like, I've, been pretty good about it. It's the family, the friends, like the personal life that has been more of a struggle. And I don't really know what the change was other than honestly learning things through my actual profession and being able to apply that in my personal life, but just like my own work, my own therapy and figuring myself out. I think that the most healing thing for me was just like getting to know myself and like accepting that, and figuring out like my limits and my strengths and just like feeling really confident in that so that I can respect that and I don't have to like feel bad about going against it.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more. And it's funny too, because with what you do, it seems like you would spend all day like trying to teach people like, okay, this is what a healthy boundary is. And this is, and then you go home and you're like, maybe, am I doing enough of this for myself? And I think it's a really good call out, because I've talked about it on the show before, but in like the heat of COVID, I was like, I have to talk to somebody, because I was literally afraid that I was going to die. And then, you find out that I'm not afraid of like dying. I'm afraid of not being here to be a good parent to my kid. And then once you understand that, it's like, oh, I can very much, now that I know what the actual root cause of that issue is, I can set those boundaries. I can think about this in a healthy way, instead of being like, I don't want to be near anybody. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting. I think, what you are talking about, like getting to know yourself, if you haven't gone through that process, or if it's not and I don't even know if it's a process that you can like go through, or a process that you have to like continually, because I don't think you ever get enough therapy where you're like, oh, I'm good now. But it's like, you have to continue going through it.
And intentionally doing it. Because we are it's very easy to distract and disconnect.
Yeah. And is that a challenge that you face, I guess, either personally or even with, people that you've worked with? But like, I would imagine that, to really help somebody, you kind of need them to open up and be in a place where they're, willing to be vulnerable about themselves. And I can imagine, I know for me, I because of COVID, I started mine virtually, and it was just this lady I had never met. So I could see where it would be hard for someone to be like, I've never met you. I don't know you. And now, you want me to tell you all of this extremely personal stuff. So like, how do you deal with a challenge like that?
Yeah. So, every day, and I've been a therapist for, I don't know, like 7 years or something now. And it was really hard and intimidating at first. I almost kind of like the challenge now, but you learn to, make people comfortable, like what you have to do and say and how you have to act so that people can feel comfortable. And, I kind of make it a joke. I mean, it even happened on my website. Like, look, I'm going to be in the fields a lot more than you're going to want to be. And that's okay. Like that's part of it. And so it's like, and everyone's different, and it takes everyone a different amount of time to like warm up and stuff. So you kind of like tiptoe in. I might like throw something out one session and they might latch on and we keep going, or I see that hesitancy. And so we back off a little bit, and, it's just a relationship, so it really is like building a relationship with anybody else. The intention of the relationship is to dive deep. And so I think naturally people are going to go there a little bit easier, maybe feel safer to do that. But it's just relationship skills of helping people feel comfortable and safe,
It's interesting because with, like Kara or my mom, I can tell you like, yeah, of course I can talk to you about anything and what's going on. But when you have like relationships and past with these people, and then you have like even though maybe you won't be judged, you have this feeling that like, oh, well, they're going to think differently of me, or maybe it'll lead to an argument, or like if I'm trying to explain how I feel, maybe it'll like lead to a misunderstanding where, someone like you and someone like what you do, one of the big things that made it really easy for me was that I could, I really didn't know this person. And so it was easy just to be like, yeah, because you're not going to judge me. You don't, you know what I mean? I've never met you before. And like, if I choose to, I never have to see you again. So I can just be like, here's everything. So is there like do you find that like either for yourself in, your personal care or dealing, with your clients and patients, things like that, is there like a sense of freedom in that, do you think? Because I know there was for me, but.
Absolutely. In our personal relationships, there's, even if it's a problem I'm having, like it's still a relationship with another person that, like it's double-sided. We're still thinking about the other person. They still have stake in this, like what I'm saying does affect them, and how I say it and our history together. And yeah, like I'm, at least somewhere in the back of my head, like I'm worried about how they're going to react to this or what they're going to think or how this is going to move forward, right? All that stuff. And that limits us. But with a therapist, like, I mean, it is a relationship, but it's also a professional one. And so like when I'm stepping in as the therapist, like I have no, it doesn't matter, say whatever, do whatever. Like I'm a pretty neutral person. I'm not gonna, get feelings hurt and all that kind of stuff. Right. Like you don't have to worry about me. Right. And that's how I feel. I mean, cause I have a therapist, that I see periodically just for maintenance. And, yeah, like that's the only person in my life. Like I get into things that I don't talk to about with Matt, it's just like, life is stressful. So like, I can't just dump on him every day. So like, that's what the therapist is for. I can just like spend an hour just talking about me and it's just one-sided and that feels kind of nice.
Yeah. And it's, that is like a really good benefit too, is to like, feel like you're not dumping everything on somebody else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think in that too, it's like, it's really beneficial because you kind of give this all out to somebody else and then you then have the chance to kind of look at it from a different angle because you get to talk through it with somebody, mm-hmm. which I think can be very helpful. Cause then, things that you do need to talk about with the people that are important, it's like, okay, well now I've had the time to process this instead of just being like here's all the reasons I'm upset or why my day sucked or anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also really liked how you refer to it as maintenance because it makes me think of like getting an oil changed or like my tires rotated. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny because it just seems like, we think about like exercise as like taking care of yourself or like, mm-hmm. am I eating right? Or, am I going to the gym enough? But it seems like with mental health, that's the one thing that we really don't look at as like, yeah, as far as my physical health, I need to make sure that, I'm going in for those maintenance checks. It's like mm-hmm. is the check engine light on? Cause I need to mm-hmm. work some stuff out. So it's like, I guess my question is like, is there a way, or do you have any suggestions for like people to get into a routine around that or like tips on like making sure that you're taking time away to focus on that mental health? So it's not something that mm-hmm. falls by the wayside.
Yeah, that's such a broad question like that. I feel like there could be just a million and one
that's how we do it.
To that,
around here. What you got?
Yeah. Because obviously everybody is unique and is, has things that work for them and things that don't. So, I do think it's important to find things in life that you enjoy. So, whether you're an extrovert and that means you need to like get out with your people and do things out in the world to, feel energized, or you're an introvert. And so you need to seclude at home or just hang out with your couple of close friends and have quiet time. It's figuring out like what your needs are. I do think it's important to take, I would say on the simplest level is just like checking in with yourself every day. How am I today? Like, am I feeling good? Am I stressed? Am I anxious? Am I angry? Like, what's going on? Do I need more sleep? So just like a check-in and being able to answer that question of what do I need right now? And sometimes that's really hard to figure out. But then once if you have an answer, then it's like actually letting yourself get that thing. If you need a break or whatever.
Yeah. And it's funny because it sounds so simple, like just check in with yourself. But then, you've got, you're a parent. I'm a parent. We've got full-time jobs. We've got spouses. We've got friends and responsibilities away from, our just like our normal work. So it's like, it sounds so simple in theory, just be like, ask yourself, how are you doing? You know what I mean? But it's like, some days it's like, well, where do I find the time with the 300 other things that I have to do? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the things that can make it so challenging. It's like, you almost have to, you have to put that question as a priority the same way that you do like, did I go grocery shopping this week? You know what I mean? It's, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's all building a habit, like you have to get in this habit of doing something every day, I think. But I mean, like my self-care, my mental health care looks completely different now than it did prior to having a kid, because my life, I feel like, is legit crazy and just like falling apart half the time, and, my 2-year-old is just absolutely attached to me if I'm at home. And then if I'm not at home, I'm working, and so like for me, I have a therapist, and like, I can't make it to the gym right now, but I'm putting therapy as a priority. I do it on my lunch break while I'm at work over video, So it's like finding some way to fit it in your schedule, even if it's like a 10-minute drive down the road, just to like have some alone time for a minute and figure things out, or listening to a 5-minute meditation sitting in the bathroom. We have to kind of get creative with that.
Oh yeah. I used to, I've been working from home in my day job now for like the last 4 years. And like, there was a point where I had time, my decompression used to be, I had a 45-minute drive into the center where I worked at. So it was drive in. I took the long way. I got to listen to like my podcasts or, drive home, kind of the decompressed time. And now it's like, I get up, I have the kid until I go to work, then I go to work, then I get off, and then I have, so there's no like break in between. So there was a while where I was like, I'm going on a 30-minute drive and I'm just going to listen to my podcast and, have that time for me to kind of decompress. But it's, I don't know, it's interesting to think about how like, there's not one thing that works for everyone. I think it, kind of ties back to your point. Like you have to find what works for you. Cause it feels like if there was just one thing that everybody could do, it would make everything so much easier. But it's like somebody might be like, turn this podcast off. And, I don't know. It's just, it's just interesting.
Well, and then the things that work for you sometimes don't work for you other times, So like, again, like before I had, Asher, I loved myself. I mean, it was just me and Matt. We were living the dream. I had all kinds, I did not know what I had, at the time. I just had all kinds of freedom, did whatever the heck I wanted to do. I would wake up and I would journal before I went to work. And then I'd, be at work all day, and I would take breaks like outside, because that's really, healing for me to like be outside. I would, come home and do like a yoga class or veg out on Netflix. I would do a meditation before I went to bed. I would soak in the bubble bath. Like all of those things were great for me. I don't do any of those things now. I wish, I dream about doing them, but only in little bits and pieces occasionally. I mean, it's just completely different,
Well, I still think that's how I got you to do this podcast, because it was an opportunity to be in a room with the door closed for like an hour.
Right. Talk with an adult,
Yeah, no, but you're 100% right. And it's, I think that was something that Kara and I struggled with is when Millie was first born. It was like, oh, so there's no more just like, we want to go here, get in the car and go. It's like, is there a bag packed? Is there, especially when she was little, is there, 3 pairs of clothes in there in case she has a blowout and we're at, out to dinner or something like that. And so it really is like, it's all stuff that I don't think you think about until after, cause you're like, while you're working, while you're waiting, it's like, oh, we're going to have this baby and we're going to be a family. And then the baby comes and you're like, nothing will ever be the same. You know what I mean?
Especially when you expect it to have a very quiet, reserved, easy-tempered child, and you got a hyper, screaming, energetic, won't sleep child.
I love him though. His energy is so, Millie's the same way. She's just like, she looked at me the other day. She said, Daddy, I don't have to sleep anymore. I was like, right? Never. She's like, no. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to work, but they just have the energy to like keep going and going and going. And there's sometimes where you're just like, I just pull my battery. I just want to power down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. At least, every day, at least some point every day.
I did want to ask you this. Like, I have found myself, since we're talking about kids, like today we went to the splash pad this morning. And there was a kid who, she was probably like 7 or 8, but she was just running around and she barreled right into Millie, and Millie went down. She scraped her knee. She like bumped her chin. And my first thought in my head was like, I want to slap that kid's parents for not telling, like you don't run, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's not realistic. Kids are going to run and have fun. But like, I immediately was like, your kid hurt my kid. No, I want to hurt you. You know what I mean? Like, do you have that like kind of like overprotected? And I don't even necessarily know if it's like overprotected, but it's like or I have anxiety. Like if we're at the playground and she's climbing on something, I'm like, oh, that's an 8-foot fall. Like, and then I'm not going to have a kid anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
So do you deal with a lot of those feelings?
Well, I definitely eyeball some kids, at the playground. I'm like, don't you get too close to my boy now. Oh yeah. There was like a little girl that I think pushed him one time and I was like, oh, watch out. But no, I mean, sure. Like I have those anxieties and like, I'm like careful with them and stuff. But like if you were to ask Matt, my husband, I am way more carefree than he is. Like it's actually kind of flipped from what we expected. Cause I'm just like, he's a kid. Yeah. He's jumping on the table. Cool. He'll figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah. And sometimes I wonder, like, if I had a little boy instead of a little girl, if I would be more like, yeah, let him fall. But like with her, I'm just like, no, like that's my best friend. Don't let her, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely don't like him getting hurt, but I let him explore a little bit more, I think, than Matt does. Well,
I'm with you though, where it's like when you're out somewhere, like you spot the kids where you're like, I don't know, you look rough. Like we were somewhere and there was a kid running around and she was still in a diaper and it looked like nobody had changed her diaper in like 3 days, like when it gets like real big and it's sagging down by their knees and we're like, yeah, you're not playing with that kid because that kid's parents don't know how to take care of that kid.
Poor kiddo.
But I did want to talk to you a little bit about, because you had mentioned it, and I think it's a big part of what you're doing now. And I didn't really know about it until I met you, but it's something called HSP, which stands for highly sensitive person. When I think about it, I think about Rayne and I say highly super person because it's I like to make things positive. But for people who might not know, and I mean, again, even really myself, I only know what I've kind of learned from you, but for people who might be listening and being like, that sounds like it could be me. What is a highly sensitive person?
So, so I always like to start because in my private practice, I work with a lot of people who identify with this trait. So we talk about it a lot. And so I always like to start with, it's not a diagnosis. It's not a disorder. It's not anything wrong with you. It is something you're born with. It is, a trait that you're born with or you're not born with. So, your brain is just wired a little bit differently. And, there's been a lot of research on it. It's actually found in a lot of species, not just humans. So lots of different animals out there. I think like even like fish and stuff, they found. So
there's like highly sensitive squirrels running around. They're just
exactly.
Like, don't touch my nuts.
Yeah. So it is, and it's found in 30% of the population for humans, and it's equal men and women.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and it's not just like introverts or extroverts, both can be highly sensitive. And so really what it is when it's talking about sensitive, it's more talking about your senses. So seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, right? All of our senses. So another word for it is, or like another name is sensory processing sensitivity.
Okay.
So a way to think about it is, so if you have this trait, you take in more information through your senses than somebody who doesn't have the trait. And because of that, you can get overwhelmed and overstimulated a lot quicker and a lot easier. So lights are, I don't want to say they're brighter, but they affect you more maybe. Sounds and textures and, like that, maybe the tag in your shirt is like really annoying or something, all those different sensory things. You can be sensitive to that. There's there's this acronym DOES that kind of explains the trait. So the D is depth of processing. So you process and think things through a lot deeper. The O is overstimulation. And so getting overstimulated by your environment a lot quicker, a lot easier, needing to like go off and kind of like decompress and chill out, sooner than somebody else. E is the emotions, which is basically like maybe your emotions are more sensitive, or like you maybe experience them quicker or fuller, but it's also about like empathy and how you're connecting with other people and like feeling other people's emotions. And then the S is sensing the subtle. And so those little like nuances in people's body language or tone of voice you're picking up on, or, when somebody gets their hair cut, you notice, or when something is like misplaced in a room, you pick up on it, like those little subtle things.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask because I know this is something, that you've told me that you've dealt with, and it sounds, if my recollection recalls correctly, like for a long time, did you even know that this was a thing, like that there was, or were you just like, I guess my question is like, if you're someone who's been dealing with this and then all of a sudden you find out like, holy shit, this is like an actual thing. What is that feeling like to be like, I'm validated?
Yes. I mean? Yeah. So for me, like I've really latched onto it, and it has been very, very empowering and healing for me. Like that's been part of my journey of like figuring out who I am, because prior to this, I was a sensitive, extremely anxious, scared of people. Like these would be like the things I might describe myself, like, oh my gosh, like I just like can't handle this stuff and I'm just so anxious. But it's a lot of reframing, because what feels like anxiety or what gets turned into anxiety because my brain is making all the meaning. It's really a feeling of maybe overstimulation. Okay. I hate fluorescent lights. Right. I have to like, everything is lamps for me. I'm very uncomfortable going into a restaurant that's like super loud and busy and, the super bright lights, like it makes my skin crawl even thinking about it. Yeah. So it's like, just like knowing those environments that really aren't good for me. And it's not really, I'm just so anxious. No, it's just like too much for me, Well,
and I guess like, and maybe you can answer this question because so Kara, for example, has the nose of a hound dog. Like she will smell something and be like, what is that? What is that smell? And I'm like, I don't smell anything. And she's like, no, something is in it. And it like, and she's the same way with the fluorescent lights. Mine, like personally, the sound of someone rubbing on a balloon, like if there's a kid with a balloon, I will punch the kid in the face to get that noise to stop. I'm just like it makes me want to jump out of my skin. So I think we all have like these certain overstimulations when it comes to different sensory stuff. But is there like a certain combination, or is it a certain level of, I guess, is there like a way to gauge, I guess, what is the difference between that normal, like if this kid doesn't stop touching that balloon, I'm going to lose my mind. And then, being like okay, I'm a highly sensitive person, or is there any difference? I guess I'm wondering if there's a way to like gauge between the normal and then, that. that, what's the word I'm thinking of? That level of stimulation. Is that a word? Stimulant?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I got you.
I'm not a smart man, Rayne. That's why you're here.
Well, I will say, so there is a quiz that you can take. It's a highly sensitive person self-test is what it's called. Elaine Aaron has been somebody who's done a lot of research in this area. And so she's created this self-test based on her research. So anyways, you can Google it or go to hsperson.com and take it. And like that can give you a clearer picture. But I mean, I guess I would say like the difference. I mean, I don't feel like I've ever experienced life at just like that normal, non-overstimulated level. So it's hard for me to relate.
That's like your baseline.
Yeah. But like, my husband doesn't, feel this way. And like every time we're in the car, turn the music down, turn the music down is what I'm saying. And it like drives him crazy, but so it's not just like this one thing or this one noise or this one, whatever. Throughout my entire day, every day, it's things that are going on. And it's just kind of a constant. Like if I don't keep check of this stuff, then like I'm just like a ball of stress and anxiety because it just like all builds up.
And I wanted to ask you this too, because it seems like before you realize that this is a thing and then kind of, because I imagine once you figure out like, okay, this is what's going on with me, then it's a lot easier to be like, okay, now I know how to handle this. And I wonder if Kara and I have had a lot of conversations, especially, having kids. It's like, we both have personality quirks and anxiety and stuff like that. And a lot of the conversations we have are like, man, like I hope Millie doesn't get this, or if Millie has this, like, can we teach her how to deal with it, or can we be examples of like how to deal with these things in a healthy way? Do you have like those thoughts at all where it's like, I know how I feel, and if Asher ends up having it or anything like that, like I just, because again, then you think about like constantly being in this anxious state, and then you're having that thought pressure, like that makes me anxious too. So it's like, do you have that same set of worry?
Yeah. So it's not so much a worry, I would say. It's, I feel like I have devoted my entire like parenting and my parenting style based on this, like based on my experience of being totally out of tune with my emotions and my inner experience and like who I am, and being totally disconnected from that. And so I am parenting in a way so that Asher is like, has emotional intelligence, basically. Like, I feel like if people understand their emotions and feel validated for their emotions and can know how to soothe and calm down without like feeling like they have to hide it or they're being judged for it. Like, I feel like that's just like everything. I mean, how we respond and act in life, and, all the little tantrums of a toddler, like it's all emotion based. And so if we can like figure out that emotional place of how to, deal with the emotions and understand those, I feel like life is just so much better.
Yeah. And I agree. And I don't know about you, but like, since Millie has been able to talk, it is so much, because when she was little, it was like she was crying, but what is she crying for? Like, is she hungry? It's like there's obviously an emotional or like a need that she's trying to express, but she can't, she doesn't know the words yet. And now that she's older and she can be like, I want goldfish, or I need to go to the bathroom, or my tummy hurts. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, okay, you're a person. I can interact with you, but we just had so much, it was just so much stress and anxiety being like, I don't know what to do. Like, I've tried the bottle, I've tried this, I've tried that. So like, as Asher is getting older and now can kind of communicate some of those feelings, is it cool to kind of now be able to start to facilitate some of that? Like, yeah, man, you've got emotions. Like, let's work through them.
Yeah. So we, I started pretty young with him when he would get really upset, just like naming his emotions, like, man, you're feeling so sad right now because I took this from you, or you're so mad that we can't do whatever. Right. And so just like putting a word to how he's acting and, how he's feeling. And so now he's like gotten to the point where, even if I just say like, are you sad? And he'll just be like, wah, like pretend. But like he knows what it is. Or like when I say mad, he'll say, yeah. Like do like his mad thing. Or he'll see like people on, a cartoon or something crying. And then he'll like get kind of pitiful with them. And I don't know, like he's just starting to connect those emotions. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. We'll be like, Millie, show me your mad face. And then we give us the stink eye and she gives us like this like side look, but it's, it's a lot of fun to see them kind of grow and start to, because for so long, they're just kind of like little jelly blobs, you know what I mean? Where like, they don't really like, I loved her, but she didn't really have much personality. She just kind of laid there. And now, she's becoming a person who likes her own things. And it's, I don't know, it's a lot of fun to see them kind of learn those things and connect and start to form their own thoughts around them, I did want to ask you this. So like, you've dealt with this your whole life and then you find out, okay, this is a thing, right? Like, how do you, I guess for you personally, or, for people who may be listening who are like, hey, that's me. Like, so now that you know what it is, like, how do you begin to address it? Or like, what are those steps? Cause it's like, okay, I've got a name for it, but like, now what?
Well, I'll tell you what worked for me. Right. And I think it works for other people too. Educating myself on it and the fact that this is something that people everywhere experience. Like there's not something wrong with me. This is a real thing. And there's all this scientific research on it, So to me, that just like felt normalizing and validating and things, right? So learning about it, educating myself on it, and then reframing how I think about it, or reframing what I would have said in the past. So instead of maybe like, I'm so anxious, I'm feeling overstimulated, I just need to take a break, so like some of those reframing things help. And yeah, just like learning how to manage, like, what do I need to do to manage my day to day? Like, what are those things that make me feel overstimulated? Like my office at work is just like this cozy little oasis, with all of my lamps and plants and all of my things. Right. There's certain restaurants I don't like going to unless we like sit outside. I know the kind of music that makes me feel good and can calm down. I know those, like being in tune, like I know when I need to take a break. Maybe it's even just like shutting my eyes for a few minutes because that's where we take in the most information is visually. So just like closing my eyes for a minute, or, I know that my house can't be cluttered and that my schedule can't be too busy, so it's just like learning these things about myself and then actually doing it instead of like, oh no, I need to keep pushing past this, or there's something wrong with me, or just do it anyway. It's like, no, actually respect yourself and don't overdo it.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems like it kind of ties back to the, setting boundaries as far as like your acts of kindness too, you know what I mean? Or like your acts of service is like that same thing where it's like, I have to know when too much is enough, or when too much is going on, and be able to kind of step back. And I have a hard time with that too. It's like, there's some times where I'm just like, I don't want to go do this thing. I did like 8 other things, but it's, I always have the fear that I'm going to be the person that like rains on the party, or like, no, I mean like no pun intended rain, but
yeah, right.
I'm sorry. Drizzle on the party. Let me say that. But like, I've also found that in like, I was just talking to Kara about this today, but like, we play cards with a certain group of people, and a lot of them are couples. One of them is not a couple, and we have like a photo share album. This person was not in the photo share album because I felt uncomfortable being like, hey, what's your number? So I can put you, because I'm like terrified it's going to be misconstrued and like, why is he asking for my number? Like that dude's creepy, where it's like, I would rather just wait until you say something about it and then be like, oh, I would love to add you if you would like me to add you. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like identifying those things, I think is gotta be really helpful for you to just be able to be like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of noise. Like I'm going to go into the backyard for a second. Or, I wanted to ask you too about, you know, the self-care spot. It's the selfcarespot.com. Right. And if people want to learn more about highly sensitive people, I know you also deal with trauma, you know, as well. Which is a whole nother episode. We can get into, let's talk trauma next time, like for a long time. But you know, you've been working on the self-care spot for, it's been years. You know, I remember, you know, you buying the domain and like putting up the like coming soon. I think it was like at the back porch at our house. So it's been a while, and now it's like a thing, and like you're seeing patients. And so I guess my first part of the question is, what is that feeling like to literally like plant a seed and then now it's like an actual thing and you're seeing patients and you can do that full time? And I guess the other part of the question is how has it been helping other people who identify, you know, the same way that you do?
Well, it's pretty cool to finally have my own thing. You know, right now it's still part-time after I get done with my salary job and I come home and do it. Very soon in the next few weeks, it will be my full-time gig and I cannot wait. But, it's interesting because it took me forever. It felt like to get my clinical license. I had to get that before I could, you know, open this, and, you know, everything's just kind of been rolling since then. But these are things that, you know, I've dreamed about for years and years and years. And then they're finally happening and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. And this is so exciting. And then they're here and then things just kind of fall into place and it just feels right. Like when I like step back and really think, I'm like, no, like you are reaching your dream right now. And I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. But otherwise, you know, it's just like another job again. But it like feels really good because it's my own thing, you know?
Yeah. I was going to say, is it because it's like, no, like, damn it, I did this. You know, I said I was going to do it and I did it, you know, does that add an extra, I don't know. I think like, you could do the same thing that you've always done, but once you're doing it like for yourself, there's no one to tell you like it has to be done this way. It's you know, it seems like that would be a pretty big feeling of accomplishment on its own. It's just like, I don't have to answer to anybody, you know, but myself now.
Yeah. So much freedom. I hate having to follow other people's rules, especially when I don't like agree with them or understand them or think they're stupid.
Well, you are a rebel by nature. If there's one thing about Rayne, she's a rebel.
Yeah, in my own little way, you know, because like at my job right now, I have to clock in and clock out. And I'm like, this is so stupid. Like if I'm done working, let me go home. But so just like the freedom of this, honestly, is the best part.
That's awesome. And what has it been like? I mean, has it been, I guess, how has it felt have people been reaching out to you about the HSP stuff and like, like, what is that feeling like? Cause I'm sure like, I don't know, when you finally figured out what it is and then now being in the position to be like, I've dealt with this for so long and now I get to help other people. What is that feeling like?
Yeah. So there's I'm a part of a community, group on Facebook of highly sensitive therapists. And so there are a lot of therapists across the country that like that is their specialty, is a highly sensitive person. And I was going back and forth whether or not to like specialize in that or like really advertise it, because here, like it's really not like you can't just like type that in and find all these people who say that they like specialize in it or something. But I know for me, it's like a very real thing. And like, I have tried to find personal therapists who do specialize in this and I haven't been able to. So it's like, no, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to trust that it's going to be good. And I actually like nearly everybody that reaches out to me says something about it. I think that this is me, or, I'm not sure, this really sounds, familiar. And so it is really cool to be several years into this now and like at a place where I feel like, yeah, like I've done my work here. So now I can help out other people. Sometimes it's kind of weird because I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is like, I'm sitting across from me right now. And this is like really weird.
Right.
But no, like I love it because I feel like I can just like, I'm really passionate about it. And I feel like I can like genuinely connect with them on that subject. So it's great.
Well, and I think, knowing you and for anyone who's listening or watching and hearing you talk about it, I think it comes across very clearly that you're very passionate about what you do. And that was another reason that I wanted to have you on because, I've told you this before, but when you first said highly sensitive person, I was like, this is some hippy dippy, like Mother Earth stuff. And then the more that you talked about it, I'm like, oh, this is legit. So I'm sure, anybody who may have heard that term before might have been like, yeah, we're all highly sensitive. You know what I mean? We're all people, but I don't know. Hearing you talk about it, hearing you kind of break it down the way that you do and the DOES acronym, it's like, oh yes, this is like completely on a different level compared to that normal level of like anxiety or overstimulation. And I don't know, it's gotta be cool. Like being in a Facebook group like that, there's something about having a tribe, and being like, okay, I'm not the only one in the camp, but I have this whole tribe of people who can relate. Has that been helpful for you as well? Just to kind of, because I guess like, okay, other people deal with it, but then to be like there's like Facebook groups. So, again, going from like, I don't know what this is to, oh my God, like I can join this group and talk about it openly. Like there's got to be like a big sense of relief there.
Absolutely. Because, just like among, my friends, my family, anybody, some people have this trait and other people don't. And, so to connect with, because there are lots of therapists out there who don't, right? But to connect with the therapists who do is really special because, some of the same, similar problems come up. And, sometimes it's the problems that you might be judged for by other therapists. Like maybe you're feeling too strongly for a client or something, right? Like I'm like having too many emotions or just like feeling so bad for them, where another therapist would be like, no boundaries, whatever. And a highly sensitive therapist might be like, no, I totally get that. And like, this is how I work with it. Right. And, one of the biggest things are that, highly sensitive therapists also often need to see less people or see a certain type of person or, have different kind of hours because, like it can just be too much to do it all day. And so that like just like validates the schedule and such that I need to keep. So just very validating.
Well, that's very interesting too, because that's an aspect of it that I didn't even think about until you mentioned it. But like, you're a highly sensitive person helping highly sensitive people. So like when they're like, this is what's going on, you're like, oh my God, like the level that you could relate to or being so sensitive to their issues. It seems like if you're not careful, like that could just be, it could be a very hard thing to deal with, which would make sense as to like why, like you'd want to see, a lower number of people or, kind of not, it just seems like it'd be very easy to overwhelm yourself while helping people to not be overwhelmed.
Right. Yeah. It can be so easy to take on all their stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm like, that's a thing for me is like, I soak in other people's energy. So like if Kara is like, you know, let's say she's having a rough day and comes home real quiet, then I'm like, for some reason I tend to match that. So I could definitely see that being a challenge, being like,
yep.
Because how do you compartmentalize? You know what I mean? What, like, how do you be like, okay, well, this is my stuff. This is your stuff. It seems like that would be pretty difficult.
Yeah. And when you're really wanting to just like fully show up in the session and just being like completely mindful and present with them and just like open, you know, to like whatever they're saying. Yeah. Like, you know, you really have to be mindful of having kind of your guard up so you're not soaking it in.
Yeah.
Allowing it, but not taking it in.
Right. Cause you have to be open enough that like you can receive it to do what you do, but you also don't want it to like overwhelm you, you know, or it's it seems like it would be a little bit of a tightrope walk, like depending on who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know you're a parent. We said we were going to go for about an hour. We're hitting that mark now, but for people who might want to, I mean, obviously the selfcarespot.com, we're going to link it up in the show notes and the, for the audio and the download. So please like go check out the website. But if people want to learn more about that or learn more about what you do you have any like resources that you recommend? And also if you have any trauma, you know, Rayne can work out that trauma with you as well. But I wanted to talk about the HSP stuff because I know it's not as well known. So if there's, I mean, do you have any resources for people as far as like, I know you mentioned the quiz at hsperson.com. But you know, anything else for anyone who might be kind of relating with what we're talking about today?
So, I mean, if you go to my website, I do have some resources. Like I've got more information about trauma, highly sensitive person, and emotional dysregulation, or maybe borderline personality disorder. Those are kind of my top things that I focus on. But yeah, there's like resources and things linked on there, YouTube videos that I like that I've got linked. But the hsperson.com, I mean, just Googling highly sensitive person, there's a lot of really good blogs and things out there as well. But those would probably be my two top things just off the top of my head.
Yeah. And if you're listening, if you just Google the self-care spot, it pops up right on the right. There's a picture of Rayne. She's the website information is all right there. And I just want to say thank you. You know, again, I know this is out of the norm for something that you would normally do, but I thought it would be really cool. And again, hopefully, you know, beneficial for some people who, you know, maybe they feel the same way. And so I appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing what you do and opening up a little bit. I'm really glad that you wanted to come on and do it. So
yeah, thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. You have to come back. Yeah, you have to come back and we'll jump back into some more stuff. But yeah,
let's do it.
For sure. Well, will you stick around for a minute after we wrap up?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, this is episode 59, back after a pretty long break. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. A big shout out to Miss Rayne Satterfield, and we will see you guys next week.